Okay, Veerma. So today we have a quote that maybe sits a bit less comfortably with me. So, and maybe with you too. So in Pedagogics of the Kindergarten, as Froebel kind of continues to talk about the mother educator and what she needs to do, one of the things he has to say is, true, the natural and unspoiled feeling of the mother often hits upon the right thing to do, but this right thing is done by her too unconsciously and too unconnectedly. It is not repeated continuously enough. Still less is it constantly and progressively developed, and so it is not logically enough built up. Thoughts,
Wow.
feelings, what comes to you when you engage with that quote?
Wow, I felt in the first part of Froebel's writings, I felt a deep connection. I felt like I resonated with him and his thoughts and his morals and his kind of outlook with children as seeds and kernels of nature, and they're so spiritual and sacred, and we must learn from them. And he often expressed the deep connection with mother and child and how important this connection is to have. So I feel a bit disappointed and let down actually to hear this quote. I mean, too unconsciously, what's that supposed to mean? That he's going against the mother's own innate impulses when it comes to responding to her child.
Yeah.
That she may need a more logical perspective, a man to come in and give her direction, because she's unconnected and she doesn't think thoughtfully.
Yeah, and we fall back into this really kind of uncomfortable place of woman, mother as instinct, man, father as logic. And Froebel is playing the role of this man, father, bringing the logical system through which the children, through which the women, and I think it's a Freudian slip there that I said children, because it feels like he's speaking to children, actually, that he really doesn't see women as kind of on the same level, maybe.
Or valued as a person.
Where do we go with that? Because obviously on one level we're like, well, it's writing in the 19th century, the views are very different, the circumstances, the social context is hugely different. Do we need to kind of accept that and just be like, okay, Froebel had some dodgy things to say, but he also had some wonderful things to say? Where do we go with that?
I think overall, to be very fair, I can only imagine the type of mindset in the 19th century for the roles of women and men. And it seems to fit the narrative that women were the child bearers at home, the homemakers that would, reproduce and have the children at home and attend to their needs innately, don't think. And that the father role is to be more logical, to go out there, to build, to bring an income in, and the woman to adhere to his ideas and his logical way of thinking and doing. And and they were really receptive to sit down and listen to this. But in terms of thinking about it today, the 21st century, we don't have to accept that. We can pull that apart. Leadership can feel and be a lot more different in terms of where we are today, and where women are today, and their roles that they play. So we don't have to accept that. But in the 19th century, it seemed to be a thing where the woman would just sit down and wait for this man's logical view, this system that he would kind of impose on her, and she would just do it and do what's instructed and listen like a child.
And so what do we do with that in our project? Like, do we just say, okay, Froebelian leadership, actually we have to shelve some of the things that Froebel himself said? Or do we say we need to kind of confront this, think about this, that we need to look beyond Froebel for a vision of what Froebelian leadership is, that actually his writings might just be a very problematic starting point, for thinking about Froebelian leadership. And actually, we need to be pushing to look at the lives of women who set up Froebelian kindergartens as examples of leadership.
Yeah.
Maybe more than we're actually looking at what Froebel had to say about women and their leadership, their lack of leadership, I think.
Yeah, I think that there's two parts that we could think about this in. And the first being that we could come to our own kind of decision about the foundations and the principles we want to take from Froebelian leadership and his basic fundamentals around child development. However, in terms of leadership and women leading, we could actually have a little twist on it. We could, research a bit more about other women that set up their own institutions, their own kindergartens, and how they adapted to their practice and what felt good for them. So we can have the first part as in agreeing with the foundation, the kind of principles around child development and their learning from Froebelian ways, and then take it beyond that and look further out, as you said, about the other women during that era that set up their own kindergartens, and then bring it back to the 21st century and see how we can all weave this together and, look beyond and bring a new vision, but with the basic fundamentals of kind of Froebelian ways of thinking, not actually leadership.